Good evening, everyone. How are you today? I hope that you all are well. I am Lorraine Edwards, co-founder of A Single Mission, ministry that exists to help single women embrace their singleness, walk in their purpose, and prepare for the partner they desire. And I'm here with my co-host, one of my co-hosts, Renee Warren. Hey, Renee, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How are you? Well, actually, you just told us how you're doing. So good to see you today.
Thank you. Thank you. Right there in the last few seconds. So I hope you all are well. Remember that we are shooting for reaching 10,000 women. Hey, Sydney Hall, let's go, mommy. Where was she when it was just us? So no, no celebrate. Let's go. So we'll tell you who mommy is shortly because it's not me. And hey, Susan, thank you. Welcome back. I hope that you all are getting not frozen by me because I am having some internet issues. And so we are having some challenges. So I hope you all are good right now. And just wanted to welcome you. And to Renee, can you talk a little bit about our theme for this season? Did you hear me? Can you all hear me?
I sure did not. The screen froze up. I'm sorry. What did you ask me a question?
I did. I said, can you talk a little bit about our theme for the season?
Absolutely. So as we kick off this third season of Live, Love, and Marry Wiser, we have decided to start with the theme of hindsight, which basically was a thought that came about from thinking about all of the guests that we have had on in seasons prior to this one. And then the wonderful guest that we had last week, Mr. David Gooden. If you haven't seen the episode, please go back and check it out. Great guy, great story, great message. But as we think about all of the information that these great individuals and couples to the lessons and the little tips that they give to help us to live our lives a little bit better, it generally comes from them taking the time to look back and to reflect on their lives. And so therefore, the thought of hindsight came up as a great theme for this year. For this season.
Thank you.
I hope everybody is hearing me okay, because on my screen things seem to be paused. But nonetheless, great guest this evening who has been this thing to going.
Thank you, Renee. So to talk about this topic of, was that healthy bonding or emotionally enmeshed parenting? We have a special guest with us. She's actually a guest host, and she will be on here throughout the season. We'll see how often we can get her, but we are excited to have her. And we're going to bring her to the stage now. Onita Hall. How are you, Onita?
Hi, beautiful ladies. Can y'all hear me? Am I sounding good? I'm coming through.
You sound great. You sound
Awesome.
great.
I told my family to please shut off the Wi-Fi on their extra devices to kind of release some bandwidth. So I hope we
that's what I told my mother, because I'm having some challenges over here, friends. And so we're not going to focus on that. Onita said, in Jesus' name, I rebuke the enemy's play to try and block us and cause nervousness. Some people are going to get free tonight, including me. So we're going to get free tonight. But I am trying to turn off all other Wi-Fi so we can make this thing happen. And please pray for us, you all, because this is going to be a really great conversation. And so we want you to definitely be a part of it and to get the full shebang. So, Onita, before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'll be more than happy to do that. Typically, I would run off with my accolades and what it is I do and who I'm married to and how many kids I have. But I've been learning, especially through this pandemic, that I am me. I'm a woman first. And so I've been told that I'm a remarkable woman, and I believe that, who embodies resilience, strength, and unwavering determination. I am an overcomer. I'm someone who's faced life challenges with grace and emerged victorious. My journey is a testament to the power of the Holy Spirit and how he can inspire us to persevere in spite of our situations, in spite of our challenges, and help us to overcome many of life's challenges and traumas. And so that is who I am as a person. That's me, Onita. One of my favorite words is perseverance. And it's funny because there's times in my life I used to say that, but not really understand that meant you had to continue to go even while you're going through the obstacle and going through the pain. Oh, that's your favorite word? Okay, let's get it. So, but it is truly a word that I believe in. And I believe I only can do that with God, because with God, all things are possible. Now on to my blessings. I have been blessed to be married to the love of my life, Victor Hall, for 23 years. And we were blessed with 4 beautiful children. One's away at college. I think she's tuning in now. And my other 3, y'all already see they on here commenting. And I'm praying that they will stay away for this hour while we are
comments, y'all. Stay in the comments. We appreciate
it. In the comments, okay? I'm an educator, but with my heart, not even intentionally choosing to do so. I have founded and opened my own firm with OPH and Associates, where I do music teaching for a couple hours a week over at the church school nearby. I'm an ordained elder as well as music director of the Ephesus Seventh-day Adventist Church in Richmond. I have my own real estate brokerage firm that I also plan to use as my retirement. And one day my husband will join me in that as we retire. He plays golf and we sell houses together. And I'm a friend. I'm a hey Ricky, a good sister. My sisters would say, hey Tay, a good big sister. My siblings, I think, will all attest to that. Try to be a good daughter and a great friend and loyal person. That's who I am. And I often have given tons of coaching for free, but I will be adding some type of pay per session, something coming up in the future, because I've helped a lot of people, especially with businesses. I would say that with some business coaching. And so that is in my near future. But I'm the type that I like to have some type of certification to go with that. You know, you did have the neighborhood moms back in the day who everybody went to, and my grandma was one of those. And so I believe I inherited that gene a little bit, but I've been told I need to start monetizing that. So I will be doing that. But that's me in a nutshell.
I love that. I love it. I love it. Well, when we kind of just tell a little, I'm going to tell a little bit about how this kind of happened. If you watch the final episode of season 2, I gave Onita a shout out because she has always like shared all of our posts and like commented on Facebook and just kind of let people know. And I really appreciate that, because it's difficult. You know, there are challenges trying to build a following and YouTube channel, and for people to have, watch and be attentive and even care about it. And so any support that we get has been really important and significant to us. And so as I was like, hey, did you see the episode where we gave you a shout out? And she was just like, oh, I'm watching it or something. And I said, well, if you ever want to be a guest host, like I never thought about it before, but as I was typing it, it just came out. I said, if you ever want to be a guest host, then let me know. And like before I hit, send, she had responded back. She's like, yes. And so, I was like, okay, cool. Like, she really supports us. So we talked. And as we kind of talked through some of the things that she might want to bring to the table, this is one of the topics that came to the table, emotionally enmeshed parenting. And of course, we haven't talked about parenting at all. So I thought this would be a great topic. And so, Onita, can you tell me like why this matters to you? First of all, what is it and why it matters to you? Like, why was this something that you wanted to talk about?
All right. Well, definitely. And thank you so much, Lorraine, for pre-sending me some of these questions because I like to talk and I know we have a time limit. So I'm going to try to stick to my responses, but I wanted to give you just a little background. So during the pandemic, I started down this journey on going from what I like to call healing to wholeness. And with that came reading of several books, webinars, and listening to different podcasts. And so one day I was listening to a podcast by a licensed clinician. Her name is Kobe Campbell. And initially I heard her on Dr. Anita Phillips' podcast. I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with her. And so I was like, man, I'm gonna check this out. And particularly it drove me, and I cling to listening to them because they also are Christians and the faith. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm getting this perspective of how it affects us mentally, but also the spiritual ramifications and warfare that also is tied into this. And so as I began to hear it and listen, I was like, oh my God, this has been me. This has been, I was raised in this. And so that's one of the reasons why I became a topic. And their actual episode in particular that she spoke about this was called Reparenting Yourself from Emotional Enmeshment. And so they, revealed what it was, but also tips on how to reparent yourself. And so emotional enmeshment is when there is a relationship between two or more people where the boundaries are unclear or non-existent. So you may be saying, okay, well, our family is just really close. But this with emotional enmeshment, it's an unhealthy level of closeness where your loyalty is questioned if you decide to choose something outside of what the family deems important to them. They want exclusive loyalty to each other. And anything outside of that system is considered a threat. Okay. If you choose anything else, there's a sense of guilt or shame that's thrown on you. So if you decide to make a change from what the family deems normal and say establish boundaries, you're brought with you're faced with shame, guilt, resentment even. And so enmeshed families tend to either operate in spaces of guilt and or loyalty, not in freedom and love like healthy families would do. And so, hey, if I want to do something else, I want to do something, I'm choosing to choose me, then you're considered disloyal in these enmeshed families. And so just even seeing that, getting the definition from it, piqued my interest and made me say, okay, I've seen this play out even in church families, because I would say a lot of my core friend groups are in church, from church. And I saw it there too, where I thought, God doesn't want us living in guilt. He gives us the freedom to choose. And so, hey, are we not even being, I won't say Christianly loved when we do this, but what are the ramifications of this and how can we be healed from it? And recognizing some of these things that happened to me, how can I help to reparent myself and also share this information with others?
So that's so good. And I know that obviously, let me say this first of all, which sorry, I forgot to say. Want to make sure we give a trigger warning. We're gonna talk a little bit about we're gonna get a little bit deep into this stuff, and you might start to see your family relationship. And so we want to make you aware that there are, just like when we talked about generational trauma, there are some things that might trigger you. So just be aware of that. Like, she got everybody. Like, I should have had you on here the first. Hey, Pastor Stoddard. And so we want to make sure that you are aware of that. We're going to be talking about some sensitive things. And but then the other thing is that we are not therapists. We're not psychotherapists. I have an MSW, but I'm not licensed. So we're talking from a lay person's perspective and also from experiential perspective. So we just want to make you aware of that. If you hear a bunch of these signs, now, as we kind of research, we realize, I mean, probably every family has one or two of these and they have them at different levels. And so every family's not emotionally enmeshed. And so don't start to like run to the therapist just because of that. Yes, it is live. No, we want your comments. He said, is this live? And since we're talking live, please click that like button, the thumbs up button. We need you to be liking this so that we can share it with more people, that YouTube will share it with more people. So that every family has a little bit of some of these, but when we're talking about enmeshed families, it's at a level that is seriously unhealthy. And so if you find that, hey, this is starting to trigger something, please see a therapist or pastor or coach and get some real professional help with this. Okay. So what specifically was there one type of sign that when you were listening to this program, you were just like, oh my goodness, that's that's me. That's my family. Can you talk about that?
You want to take your thing off mute? You're muted.
Thank you. I hit the space bar. I didn't know it would do that for me. Thank you so much. Teamwork. Well, there were several, but I would say particularly recognizing that with emotional enmeshment, a lot of times the child is being held responsible for the parent's feelings and emotions. You're having to, one, sometimes parent yourself, but also parent them. If they're having a breakdown and they can't deal with it, you're sometimes having to be the tough one and console them and work them through it. So I recognize that in myself and in my upbringing. Also having to be the Supergirl of the family, having to have everything together, setting a good example, no matter the age, being responsible for the well-being of your siblings as well as other adults in the house, and having to kind of keep that cape on with different moments of my life. Even if I was feeling down, hey, this is your role in the family, keep it in the family. Things of like that where, oh, we're close-knit, we keep all our business in the family, we don't really fool with them. So moments too of that where we're just real close. Like we all ride for each other. The only people that matter kind of is your family, because these people don't do anything for you. So don't go hang out with them. Or why are you so pressed about going to see this aunt and uncle? They never did nothing for you, but just be loyal to this core family group, no matter the cost. And boundaries were non-existent. At first, I thought, oh, they're porous, in reading Nedra's book. They're porous. Oh, no, they were non-existent. And so anything went, anything goes. And if you dare try to have a boundary or set a boundary up, and I would tell you this even happened, but probably within the last 3 or 4 years, I made a declaration that, hey, family, I love y'all, but I'm going to establish some boundaries. I just came right out and said it. It was one way for me to one, do it, but to let them know if they saw me shifting in my presence and my lack of response, because I'm typically responding immediately as soon as the text comes or the call comes. And I made a declaration, and immediately I was brought with, oh, you think you're better than, who do you think you are? And your kids know better than anybody else's. And it was like, no, this is an attempt to heal, to set healthy boundaries, not just for myself, but for our children. Let our children learn what it looks like to have boundaries, to be in a family where they're able to express their likes and dislikes. They're able to choose to be themselves and choose to be around other people that don't necessarily look like us and come from where we come from, and know that that's okay and they're healthy too by doing that. And so that's what kind of stood out to me a lot with recognizing where I just labeled everything as dysfunctional. Then I was able to see, oh, this is emotional enmeshment. This is kind of what this looks like. And one of the other things, not necessarily with me, but what I also recognize in my family, particularly, it's a lot of single women in my family growing up. And I would recognize a lot of them would say to their son, "Hey, you're my king."
Mm.
And we're not recognizing that's emotional enmeshment, where when you're researching and looking at it, it's kind of what Kobe Campbell likes to say. She called it covert emotional incest.
Right.
Where
Right.
where I know y'all listening, like, what the heck, incest? But not in a sexual way, but really where they're fine with, you have a lonely parent who's
Mhm.
deciding, I'm going to still just be alone, but I'll rely on my son, particularly with mothers and sons, is where you see it the heaviest, to
Right.
feel that emotional spousal need that I have.
Right.
And that
Right.
has a whole lot of more ramifications for that. And I saw it where the son got preferential treatment from the mom, where the daughters got treated like Cinderella, more like Celie from Color Purple, but but and the son got treated like golden. The son didn't have to do
Mhm.
chores. His clothes was ironed. He got the best of everything. He got to mess up a lot, and it's okay because he's my son. He's my king, and not understanding the ramifications of what that
Mhm.
did, in the family. Yeah, Renee, let me let
Mhm.
you in.
Yeah,
No,
can I jump in? No, so I hear what you're saying, and this is a really important conversation, because you introduced me to the term enmeshment. Never heard it before, but as you began to describe it, and we all did our research, on what exactly it is. It's just like you said in the beginning. We're looking at, or Lorraine said in the beginning, like, we're looking at that thing and like, wait a minute, I had this happen in my family, or whatever. And that's great advice, Lorraine. Before we go and say, oh my goodness, there was all types of enmeshment in my family, to get that professional help if it was something that was a little more severe. But the question that I have is, when we're talking about severity, like, what really are the consequences? Like, you're giving great examples of like
Mhm.
what it looks like and how it presents itself, but really, what are those negative consequences of it? What's the negative consequence of my child being my king, or like the man of the house, or the daughter,
Mhm.
taking care of their siblings? And you're like, what is that? What does that look like?
I would say some of the negative ramifications are, one, you're teaching your child not to have boundaries ever. So they don't grow up learning that I need to have boundaries. You're placing these high levels of expectations, and your desires and everything revolves in them. So say it's not the mom to my king, but the mom to the daughter. All these things that I couldn't be, I want you to down be them. And
Mhm.
these extra
Right.
added pressures that they have, that they never gonna live up to. The other thing is, for you as the parent, when you have, and I've seen this play out too, put everything into this kid, especially the son, and he finally decides, I got somebody else. The mother is left
Mhm.
feeling hurt,
Right.
resentful,
Right.
even lonelier, but
Jealous. Jealous.
jealous, very jealous. The girl is never good enough. Just the mental health ramification even has on the mom now, and the child, because they're not able to deal with regular life situations, because they've never had to even cope with it sometimes, and know how to deal with it outside of their block. Again, sometimes it's
Mhm.
not just mom and dad, it's the family. Sometimes it's
Right.
married couples, even, where the couples are choosing, because, so, newsflash, people can be married and still feel lonely.
Right.
Mhm.
So for anybody who thinking, I don't have
Breaking.
I don't have a spouse, and I'm lonely. People can be married and still feel lonely, and
Mhm.
those parents can then still have emotional investment, and relying on
Gotcha.
validation and love and support from the kids, where
Mhm.
all the nagging comes from the mom to the husband, right? But the daughter is like, Dad, you do this so well, and you do that so well, and you're so great. And so dad repays her too, with all of the affection and all of the love,
Mm.
and all the rewards and all that.
And that's where that incest comes in that you were talking about. It,
Right.
Yes,
it, it runs the risk of coming in there.
yeah, it
I
runs the
want,
risk of that.
I wanted to interject and comment on something that you mentioned, that whole concept of putting all of the responsibility, and you have to like live up to, as a child, all of these high expectations, because you're the good one and you never give me any trouble. And what I've learned from that is that can sound like encouragement and like you're pouring into your child and you're making them feel good about themselves. And at some level, at a lower level, maybe that's true. But when you get in these families that are enmeshed, what you're really saying is don't screw up. I expect you to live up to this because I don't have the bandwidth to actually parent you. I don't have the desire or the interest. I got other stuff going on over here. I need you to be the responsible one, and I don't need to get any trouble out of you. You take care of your siblings and let me handle this. And that's the underlying foundation of that kind of comment toward your child, like, oh, you never give me any trouble, you're just the golden child and all of that. And so then there's the golden child, but then there's also the scapegoat. So, and usually if there's more than one child, one is one and one is the other, or to certain parent, like the father may think that the son is the scapegoat, well, the mother thinks he's the golden child. And so then that causes war. And what that then causes is triangulation. Now the child is in trying to navigate the relationship between the parents. And so that is super. So I'm glad you mentioned that whole golden child kind of situation.
Yeah. And to add on to that, because I'm going back to my notes here, to add on to that, with that triangulation where you got the good kid and then you got the one over here who gets to be carefree, they grow up with two different realities. One is thinking, I've always had to carry all the weight. She's the favorite over here. She gets to be carefree. She don't have to be responsible and what have you. And then they become adults who, if they don't recognize it or deal with it, this one is still resentful because, hey, she got to be favorite. This one is over here going, she resents me. She doesn't like me. Even though she was the favorite sort of sorts, they both were neglected. They both had to deal with the negative sides of this emotional enmeshment. And so both are having to heal, but sometimes the division stays there because there's the mentality of, I had to carry it all, you didn't have to carry any weight. And this one is going, you resent me for being the favorite or whatever, and I'm not really the favorite, because they too can become very emotionally the hurt, the baggage there, or the expectations later of, because now mom, for instance, has this better relationship, at least
relationship appears to be better. Yeah.
Right. Appears to be better because mom goes, well, this one who carried it all don't really need anything. I don't need to check on that one. But mom overly checks on the other one. The other one needs to be, so this one is unstable, or they don't know how to handle life. So they're constantly checking on that one, which still helps to drive the division that's there, the level, the jealousy that could be there, because this false sense of love on both sides is, they're still not getting it. And so these now siblings are adults who can't even come together because this thing still happens. The other point I wanted to bring out was, once you are an adult in this emotional enmeshment, and if you're not reparenting yourself as that, you begin to, feel guilt of, man, I didn't call my mom today. Not, I miss my mom, I really want to call, but there's a guilt of, I didn't call my mom, or your mom is saying, or dad, I shouldn't have a need for anything. I have children, I bore you into this world. I shouldn't need anything. You should be doing this for me. You should do that for me, in order to be considered still that good child.
That's right.
Yeah. And so, because again of this emotional enmeshment, and they want you to still make them a priority, no matter the relationship you're in. You may have all your, married with kids. There's still this, you need to be loyal to me, and I need to still be a priority. Stop what you're doing when I call. Yeah. Stop what you're doing when I call, and keep me as a priority.
I want to talk about reparenting, but I want to talk about it closer to the end. So just let's not forget that, because I want to kind of deal with the problems, and then kind of one of the ways that we can help to fix that. But so single parents can struggle with this because they are the only parent. We're not saying all single parents at all. We're not saying that, but we're saying it can be a struggle, especially single women, single mothers. So what are some of the things that a parent either single or married parents can do to create a healthy bond, because that's still important, to be close and to be connected to your child without crossing over into enmeshment?
I would say that one, have a talk with yourself, because what I'm seeing and what again I've read and listened to, if you are even currently a parent having this, you're doing the emotional enmeshment, you probably were a kid who was involved in that. The
Yeah.
cycle is just repeating itself, right? So have a real talk, like talk to yourself and say, is this me? Like recognizing it, just like other addictions or habits that need to be broken. Have this self-realization of, is this something I'm struggling with, that I'm tinkering with, I'm on the borderline with, and decide I need to do the work to be healed. What
Mhm.
is that? And what is that work? Is it work that part of a thing that drives me? And look, for a later session, but I will tell you one thing that drove me a lot in my marriage, as when I became a parent, I did make parenting more of a priority than my marriage. But again, that's because the way I was not parented, and then losing my father abruptly when I was younger, I had issues of abandonment. So I overparent to make sure my kids felt love, and they didn't feel that they didn't have me to be there for them, and that they knew without a shadow of a doubt they had mom. But what that does is that causes issues in the marriage. So and that again gives your kids a false sense of not being able to be co-independent, where, or interdependent, you might have to correct me on
Mhm.
that way, where yeah, know that your mom is able to help you and your dad's able to help you, but understand you have your own lives and you need to be able to do these things on your own, rather than
Right.
making them be codependent and bubble
Mhm.
wrap children and what have you. But
Right.
recognize, I would say, first key is just recognizing, is this me? Is this something I'm struggling with now as a parent? Or I may not even have kids, but I was parented this way, and decide I need to get help, right? Let's get help to be healed. This could mean seeing someone professionally, like you mentioned earlier, Lorraine, in the conversation, or listening to experts, as I've been doing, listening to experts in this matter, as well as reading books and journaling. As again, as both ladies said, as we started to go down this, I would say, rabbit hole of looking, we thought, is this gonna, will there be enough information? And there's so much information. I mean, at one time, my YouTube just kept bringing up, videos after videos, and
No.
of life, what I mean, of licensed professionals. So it was great. I was getting information from them. And so that's one way to get to kind of step into that and just reparent yourself away from this type of parenting style, because like I said, it was probably done to you first. So make a decision to, let's have a conversation. Let's start. And sometimes I find, you have to write it down. One, I'm going to start creating healthy boundaries. And
Mhm.
this will be, even if I tell my kids, there's times where, even like now, I told my kids, this is mom's time. I need to have this moment. You need to go do something else, like be out of the sight. I've had to start asking, single parents, ask for help if you
Mm.
don't have help. Like try to find, if you have some healthy relationships, you can have a village that you can even say, even if you just want to be home, but to give you and your child that space so they can start surviving or being out around other people, to create other relationships and know that it's okay to have those relationships, and get some self-care time for yourself, because it's hard to do that with
Mhm.
everything.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I'm listening to everything that you're saying. And I can imagine that it is, and I think I even read this though, that a lot of people do it, unknowingly, right? And when
Yes.
you're talking about, do those evaluations, just kind of look at yourself and your relationships with your children and be realistic about it. The thing about it is you don't know what you don't know, so
Mhm.
there's a couple things, but like one, if you are lucky and blessed to run into someone named Onita or someone like Onita who is familiar with this, you know what I mean? Like take a second just to, kind of overlook, your parenting style, or your relationship style, and see, does any of this thing, do any of these things apply? And, what are some of those strategies, which we may have already touched on and we will touch on in a minute. What are some strategies that can help us, like you said, create those healthier boundaries, and that healthier bonding with our children. But also the other thing is giving yourself grace, you know, because
Yes.
when I'm saying that sometimes we go into it unknowingly, it's because, like you said, we were parented a certain way. And a lot of people, you know, say, I want to give my children what I did not have. If I didn't have that emotional support, I'm going to overly be there for my children.
Right.
Then
Right.
we run into a space where, you know, my mom, you know, didn't tell me anything about, you know, why the relationship went awry. And so I feel like I missed something. I missed a lesson on relationships, you know what I mean? Because back in the day, man and woman, when they had issues, they did not share that information with their children. You don't know anything. And that's a life lesson. How to, you know, what type of, not that I need to know everything, but
Right.
like what type of conflicts did you have? How did you deal with the conflicts? Why did it end up going in that direction? And what I'm saying is, like, what could I have possibly learned from that about dealing in a healthy manner with relationships? If I didn't
Yes.
get that, now I'm, you know, with my child, I'm telling them everything because I didn't know and I missed out on the lesson. And now I'm telling you everything, or I'm encouraging them to tell me everything. And that's not necessarily the case. You know,
Yeah.
as your children are developing or we're developing, and we, you know, we get to that point where now we're not necessarily under our parents, you know, every second of every day. We should be out there building friendship relationships.
Yes.
And so there are some things that are for your parents and there are some things for your friends.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So again, I can see how we can do that unknowingly, but definitely have that grace with yourself if you realize that there are some things that I probably need to work on.
For sure.
You know,
I love that you put up the point. Not talking.
I just wanted to just kind of share some more of the signs. I'm just going to run through them. Like extreme, I think you mentioned this, extreme guilt or shame from deviating from the family culture, a struggle to differentiate your feelings. So if your mother is sad, then even if you came in happy, now all of a sudden you're sad. And then it's this part, and everyone just kind of feels the same way, even if that's not really their feeling at the time. They inhibit their feelings. The family unit has a strong us versus them theme, like you mentioned, that loyalty to. There's a tendency to not voice your needs in the relationship as a child, and so then Onita's going to talk a little bit about this. We'll talk about how all of this from a parent-child relationship can then when we become adults translate into our romantic relationships or even our friendships and stuff. There's parentification. We talked about spousification, triangulation. You're over involved as a parent. And Renee, when we were kind of preparing, you were talking about the Parkers, and I think I might have seen it once, so I don't have that context, but you were talking about the Parkers. And for those who have seen that show with the mother and the daughter, and she's in college with her, and it's just like, okay, it's too much. It's too much. One of the videos I was listening to for a therapist, he was talking about a mother who, when she went to take her daughter to college, she like stayed for a whole week and was like hanging out with her and her friend. You know, she was making new friends and all of the different things. I think he said she went to class with her even, but I'm not 100%. But it's like she was in everything and taking all these pictures like she was her best friend. And even though I don't think it's a bad thing to be friends with your adult children, but we're not going to be best friends like that, you know? So being overly involved. So now every date, they want to know all the details, just like you would tell your girlfriend or your, I don't know if guys do that too, but, and so those are some of the things. There's lots more, but, and even like when your child does good, your self-worth is tangled up in that. So those are the parents who are just like freaking out on the sports, you know, if their child gets cut or their child is on the bench, or if their child doesn't score, and they're like freaking out because what their child does is what they wanted to do, but they couldn't. And so now everything is like, well, I'm a good parent if my child is X. And you know what's so interesting he said, I don't know if you all remember that scandal with all of those Hollywood parents who bribed the schools
Yeah.
to. He said that is enmeshment, like their self-worth was dependent upon their children getting into those kinds of schools. And so now they have essentially committed a crime in order to make themselves look good. So those are just some of the things so that you can kind of, if your parents start evaluating. Now, what we don't want you to do is tell other people, oh, you are like,
Right.
that's not the point of it. You can share the video with them because we appreciate that. But we don't need to do that. So,
Lorraine, I had two more examples too, because you basically put out a couple of them already. I was going to say, I think I said it earlier too. Are you never happy with any friend or dating partner they bring home? They're not good enough for your child. We already said again, you calling your son my king or my queen, your daughter my queen, while again choosing to stay single and just letting them be, telling anybody you date, just to let you know, my kids come first. No matter what level of your relationship, my kids always come first. And that kind of honestly was a mantra it's just like, especially in our community, my kids come first. No matter what your spouse is, they can be a good man or a good, basically a good man. I heard it more from women than anything. Another part, do you allow your child to have a difference of opinion and respect it and not try to guilt or shame them when they don't have your same ideology? And another one is, do you make plans to hang out? Even if you have a sitter or whatever, but for some reason you end up always coming up with an excuse because I need to just be with my kids. I need to kind of just stay with them. That's all. They're all that matters. And so that was just another example I wanted to share. And for the adult kid, one more thing for the adult kid, and I think I told you about this story. I have friends of mine who happily married, been married, had a couple of kids of their own, and just happened to be visiting their parents, and their parents still had the mentality, and I think I told you this was about dealing with the difference of cultures. They weren't American. They're not Black American. They're Caribbean descent, and they're still struggling with the fact that what parents says, what mom and dad says, and what goes is what goes. And so they were trying to have a little nap, and dad just came, not even knock, open the door. Hey, we're all going down for worship. And so her husband, he's thinking, listen, I'm grown, I'm married, I ain't got to come down, and stood outside the door and waited for them to come down. And I just remember her sharing with me, that was just one of the many examples of, even though she was grown and married, they require you to still do what they tell you to do. You can't have an emotion or feeling about it. How dare you say I'm going to, something you did as a kid to me or as a child might hurt. They can't express it ever. It's still wrong. They're not able to express it even now because of, just the roles that they have to play in that parent dynamic.
Yeah. No, that's so good. That's so good. So now, as we're kind of like coming to the end, I want you to talk about something. I want you to talk about reparenting and what that is. How does it work? What does it mean? Like, how do you do it? All of that.
Well, definitely, like some things we talked about here, definitely recognizing that you need to help and that you have a life too. Reparenting and actually recognizing that, like Renee said, offering yourself some grace and even holding space for yourself. This is something that I'm still learning each day, and having compassion for yourself too. A lot of times we're having compassion for other people, but how do we show ourselves compassion and how do we show up for ourselves? The other thing would be to, again, read and study up on it. What are some things that I can do to help reparent my way of thinking as the adult in the relationship so that I can be a healthier version of me? What happened to me? That's one of the books I put down here too, by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. And I will tell you, I'm on Audible with that thing, and I can't get past one of these chapters. I'm stuck in that chapter, not because I don't like to finish a book, but because it was like a jolt to the whole nervous system and body of just revealing some things that I even had suppressed myself and not realizing this is why I'm being motivated to do things this way and that way. And so that's a good one to start with, because again, this emotional enmeshment is not just the surface of what you see me do and how I treat my kids. There's a deeper issue pushing that, motivating me to do these things. And like you said, it can even be out of love, because that's mostly time where we thinking it is. We're thinking that's a healthy love. But anytime that love has to come with guilt and feelings of you have to be loyal to me, or I would even say blind allegiance to what this family unit is, then that's not healthy. And so learning that to get the help that I need, as well as start establishing boundaries in your home and even with yourself. That was something that I thought was um, interesting in reading Nedra's, pronounce her name for me, all the last name always get me.
Tawwab, Nedra
Tawwab.
Tawwab.
Yeah, Nedra Tawwab book was setting boundaries, was also setting boundaries for yourself, because it's a challenge. And I would say in this world today where everybody has access to us, everybody expects my phone to ring, I need to do that. But setting boundaries, even for yourself, to where I'm going to set time aside to be intentional about reparenting me. What are some things that I'm now recognizing is an issue, and how can I deal with these things and become a better version of myself and be whole? And I thought one of the books that was interesting that one of these doctors put on there was she said it was self-differentiation work. It's by Mark Manson, and it was the subtle art of not giving an F. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I heard of it. I just was actually listening to someone talk about that book today too, as well. Can you? And Onita will send us a list of the books that she's referencing in the podcast as well, and we'll put them in the description of this podcast, this channel, after we finish here.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And we did this for a marriage ministries. This book called How We Love. It was for married couples by Milan and Kay Yurkovich. And what I found to be interesting is that they have one on parenting. How do we love parenting? Which, we don't recognize sometimes some of our kids still have their form of a love language too, and how we love them. And they have a book too on parenting. And again, this is so not the way I was raised, to read a book, to see a therapist, to listen to podcasts, all these things. It's a complete 180. When I say it takes much prayer, it takes me asking every day for a renewed mind, because it's a whole way of changing your thinking. And it's it's generationally in your DNA to be able to try to go against the tide. It's hard to, so it's not an easy thing. And there'll be days where you think I got it all figured out, and then you'll revert right back to
true of all of a lot of our habits, right?
I thought I was over that. I thought I had got rid of that. But I would say setting boundaries, definitely, it was one of the first ones I think a lot of them said, because again, part of emotional enmeshment, that's one of the biggest issues you have, that there aren't any boundaries, as well as dropping in. So I had to also learn that it's okay, Supergirl, because I didn't realize I was wearing an invisible cape for years. It's okay to not respond to the text of a family member in need. It's okay to let them fall, because God had to also reveal to me too that, Onita, if you keep sending this person the Cash App, if you keep bailing them out, then I can't get them to get to that place of rock bottom where they're solely.
Oh, that was
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, I know. Solely dependent on him.
What do you need it?
Well, what were you gonna say, Renee? Until she gets back, you can.
I actually wanted to share a story, an exchange between my son and I that occurred probably just a couple of weeks ago. My son is 27 years old, and I am still learning how to do this parent thing, right? We had a moment where
we got you back telling the story, but we'll come back.
I'm so glad to have you back. And we're on the edge of our seat. We want to hear the end of that story. Do you want me to finish, or do you want to finish? Okay. So anyway, Christian and I were having this conversation, and basically he there was a moment where he needed me, his parents, emotionally. And he said, Mom, I kind of, needed to talk to you guys. And he said, but Mom, sometimes I feel like you guys are just making things up. And I was like, busted. We totally are. I was like, honey, I've never parented a 27-year-old before. You know what I mean? Talking to him as a 27-year-old is totally different than talking to my baby, my 10-year-old. You know what I mean? And I'm having to figure out the difference between my baby and my son, who is now a man. And I think it could be easy to fall into this, into exactly what we're talking about today. But I don't want to do that. And I find it a challenge every single day to have to take the step back, to let him walk in his manhood. Like you said, Onita, sometimes, let him, bump into the wall, let him figure out how to climb the wall, let him, figure it out. It is difficult, but I mean, obviously it's doable. I am a parent who my mind is open, teach me, tell me, show me, because I don't know how to do it. I'm Googling as much as I can, and I'm listening to Onita. I'm listening to Live, Love, Marry, Wiser. I'm doing all of the things I can to make sure that I'm doing it as right as I can. And I don't even really know what that is.
Listen, it's so funny you say that, because even my oldest now, Taylor's at college. Shout out Oakwood University. Okay. But it's so funny because even she now goes, see, if I did that, because of course we gotten older and we got more kids. If I had done that, this would have happened and that would have happened. And so,
exactly.
And I remember another psychologist saying that each kid actually got a different version of the parent.
Yes.
And so I even told her, baby, we had so much energy. We were full of life. I was reading books, baby wise, and all these things. I was going to make sure you hit every milestone at this age or earlier. And you were going to read at this point, and you were going to, and I don't know which kid it hit me in, but the doctor told me one day, you're expecting this one to talk at the same time as this, or this one to walk. And we're all like popcorn kernels. We all pop at different times. But and with the parenting, it's, she'll say, I guess I was y'all test dummy. And I'm like, I guess. Sorry, not sorry. But we legit, you're learning. Like you said, you're on this road, you're trying your best you can. And we all talked about this too in our prepping session. Now, some people say I did the best as I can as just a covering of let me sweep everything under the rug. They don't want they don't want to own up to any of their flaws or things they could have done better or be accountable for them. We're not saying that. We're saying sometimes that I've only had the knowledge and the capacity to do the best that I could at that moment.
Right.
And that's the thing that we all can say. Going back to the point I was making, and I think this is the point I was making because, after each kid, your memory gets worse. But I think I was making the point of saying, oh God, the Holy Spirit was telling me, how can I ever get to them when you're constantly wearing your cape? Here's Onita to save the day. You are providing the money. You're sending the grocery order. You're being the shoulder to lean on. I mean, when I was younger, like I was and Victor can tell you this, I was ready to go to the bus stop and fight the girl in school for you. And I did that as a kid, all these things to show that, because it was literally ingrained in me that you're the big sister. You have to be, you have to be a good example. You have to look out for your siblings. You have to do all these things right. And so that was the only thing I got to see. And a lot of times blindly going into situations to back you up and fight for you, not even knowing the truth, where you was the instigator. But the Holy Spirit said, stop, these are my children, especially for the ones that grow. And I need you to back off so I can do what I need to do. I need him or her to fall, hit rock bottom, so that they can now look up to which comes their help. You know who your source is. I run to him. You know who your source is and where your strength comes from. Now I need them to get it. So back off. It's going to be okay. And to be honest, one of those things and Kobe Campbell and her husband talked about this in her podcast. her husband, who came from he's a pastor's kid, very loving family, found it very hard to deal with this particular topic because he didn't think his first family had any of these issues, but not realizing he too struggled with having to always be the good kid, even as an adult, having to answer the call when his mom called, having to make his family a priority. And it was not to his wife, his wife telling him, you made vows to me. It's supposed to be me and you first. What it said to him, it literally said to him, I need you to be a different person and I need you to cut off your family. And thank God for the spouses we have, because my husband, God definitely sent him to be a protector of me. And this was the same thing he was trying to do. Sometimes the words, well, we've gotten better with our words, but he was trying to also pull me off this hamster wheel of Onita,
Right.
stop trying to save them or do this. And at first I too was looking at it as, you want me to cut my family off? Like and he's like, hey, if you can never let go of them and be healed and we establish something, you won't even have a chance to create our own family. And it was hard, but the Holy Spirit had to convict me of that to make me realize that some of this same stuff, y'all, that I was helping people with 10, 15, 20 years ago, they're still doing. So had I sacrificed, and kept on staying on that wheel with them and kept on running to the rescue, I wouldn't be married and I probably wouldn't have my 4 beautiful children. And so you have to, at some point, make the decision to choose you and to choose to be a better version of you, a healed version of you, and one that can teach the next generation, because it's all about legacy. It's great to be able to make money or whatever, but what's my legacy down the generations?
Right.
Am I parenting children that are going to know how to set healthy boundaries? Am I parenting children that are going to be good citizens in the world and they're co-independent, where they know they got us, but they're able to live their lives on their own and know
Right.
that the spaces they hold are just as valuable as what mom and dad do, but they can live their lives. And are they going to still, believe in our value system and feel that they can be free to love and do and be where they want to go and not guilty and feel like loyal to us only or else. And those are not things I want for my kids. I want them to know that they're loved, that God loves them, and that they can go out there and be the best version of themselves. And let's break some of these generational curses. And I know the change has to first start with me. And so we're doing the work.
I love it. I love it so much. We could probably talk for another hour, but we can't talk for another hour. So we are so thankful for you to come and bring this topic. It's certainly not something I would have thought of on my own, but just making up stuff. Of course, you can just Google stuff and be like, oh, let's talk about this. But you really want to talk about it from the sense of someone having an experience and being able to share that, or a therapist or something like that. But we want to bring value to the people that are watching so that they can learn and grow and share this. Share it, guys. Share it. Subscribe, share, like, just hit that thumbs up button right now. That would be so awesome if you did that, and make comments. But share it, because there are people who are struggling and don't know what the issue is, what they came from, and then what they're about to perpetuate in their own life and their own relationships. We always like to, bring the Bible into it and with a scripture. And there were a lot of scriptures about how children should treat their parents. So I was like, hey, God, what about, and so, but I went to this Psalm 127, 3 and 4. Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior, so are the children of one's youth. And so God is saying to us that the gift of a child is from him, first of all, and it's a responsibility and a blessing. And when we come to this with a perspective of, yeah, I don't know everything. No one knows everything. But especially in this day and age, with all of the resources that we have Live, Love, and Marry Wiser. We have books, we have podcasts, we have audio books if you don't like to read books. We have all of these things on YouTube, you can Google anything, which is what we did in a sense. Now I have all these, videos about emotional enmeshment. And so you may not even call it that. You may just say, how do I become a better parent? Like, what does it mean? Like, what do I need to do? What should I be teaching? You can Google that. You can find a book about it. But now you have a responsibility that God has blessed you with. And a lot of times we say, oh, this is, an unwanted pregnancy, but it may not have been planned by you, but God still created that child in your womb with a purpose. That child is still a reward. That child is still a warrior in the hand of like an arrow in the hand of a warrior. And so that means that God has purpose and love and direction for that child. And he has gifted it to you, him or her, to you, to be a part of that plan. And so, yeah, we fail, we struggle in different areas of our life, but now we have the opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to do better. I'm going to learn something more. I'm going to change one habit. You're not going to change everything at one time, but I'm going to change one habit. And as you build on that, then you become stronger. And like now you change something else. And now the relationship starts to shift a little bit. And so there are steps that we can take to become the parent to the gift that God has given you. So we definitely want to thank you for being here, and thank you for coming back in the future. I just wanted to, give her a little shout out here. If you're looking to buy or sell a home in Virginia, ophrealty.com. And also, if you are welcome actually these links are in the description as well. Get my free ebook or PDF, Love or Illusion 5 Green Traits That Might Signal Trouble Ahead. That's a good one, and it's for free. And then if you want to book me for speaking, asinglemission.com/book-Lorraine. Thank you so much, Onita. Thank you, Renee. This has been a great discussion. Thank you to all who joined. And now that you know that we're here because of Onita, now you can come back next week. Send all those people back next week.
Yes.
And until next week, which next week I'm excited. Our topic is Single Again, Life After Loss. And so I have a friend of mine who lost her spouse a year ago after they were married for 20 years unexpectedly. And we're going to talk about what that is like and what she has learned from that. I'm excited for you to be a part of that conversation. And so until next time, make choices that will help you live, love, and marry wiser. God bless you.
God bless you all. Thank you.